The Last Duel was directed by Ridley Scott and stars Matt Damon, Jodie Comer, and Adam Driver, and follows the story of the last sanctioned duel in medieval France in the 1300s as Jean de Carouge faces off against Jacques Legris in a trial by combat after Jacques Legris is accused of raping de Carouge's wife, the Lady Marguerite. Guys, I was really excited to see this movie. The trailers looked so fascinating to me. I love it when Ridley Scott does a huge style medieval epic, such as with Kingdom of Heaven, which is one of my favorite movies of all time. But also, I was really looking forward to this because it's the reunion of Matt Damon and Ben Affleck writing a screenplay together since Good Will Hunting. And it was something that was really on my radar, and I found it to be a very interesting story nonetheless. And I finally sat down and watched it in a theater, and I'm so glad I did because this is a fantastic movie that is not only just a great sprawling epic with fantastic performances, but it's an interesting story and the way in which the story is told, using the Rashomon effect to great appeal. So when you're watching this movie, the story is split up into 3 chapters, and you're basically going to be seeing a lot of the same events played over and over throughout the 2.5-hour runtime. However, you'll be getting new nuggets of information throughout that you didn't get in previous stories. So the first act of the movie is more or less the truth as told by Matt Damon's character, and then you see how that goes along up to the events of the duel, and then we flash back to the events as told by Adam Driver's character, and then finally we end on the final story, which is the events as told by Jodie Comer's character, Marguerite, and that is definitely the most fascinating one, and it's the one that is considered the truth. Now, what's really fascinating about this movie is how it relates to today in particular. This is definitely a movie that is coming right off of the Me Too movement, which became so huge, with many women coming out talking about their sexual abuse, and this is that type of film placed in the medieval era, and it's, for the most part, really well done, and I think makes it a very timely story. The performances across the board are also absolutely fantastic. Jodie Comer in particular shines as Marguerite, and I wish she had a lot more to do in the film. However, when it comes to her particular story, we really get invested in her character and we see the world through her eyes and see how she is so belittled in this world that is ruled by men. And I also love how these stories will change and make you think about characters in a very different way. Matt Damon's character is seen as very noble in his story, but he's kind of seen as a bit of a prick in Adam Driver's story, as well as Jodie Comer's story. And I found that really interesting because characters can shift and change depending on, who is telling the story. There's some great moments where a character will say a line in this particular story, but a different character will say it in this story, and then we find out in the third story that neither of them said that. And it's just really fun and entertaining. It makes you really dissect each individual story, and it makes it a lot of fun. It obviously reminded me a lot of Rashomon, which is what this movie, in terms of structure, is inspired by, which is one of my favorite movies of all time, and I think it's a great way of telling a story through differing perspectives, because you see that there's some missing details here. Not everybody is telling the truth, and it's really, really interesting. But back to the performances as well, I have to commend Matt Damon, who is really good in the film, but the one that really steals the show, or the two people that really steal the show, is Adam Driver, who is one of my favorite actors working today. He is so sinister and evil. There is literally a line where Adam Driver says, "Come, let me put some evil inside you." I'm like, damn, okay. Um, but also Ben Affleck playing this Duke Count type character is also a lot of fun. He's just this promiscuous guy that is just having a blast. Like, Ben Affleck might be my favorite character in this movie just because of how entertaining he is. He throws F-bombs left and right. He wears gold shoes. And he's just really, really entertaining and is definitely some of the comic relief of the movie. But also, the movie does a great job of really putting you in that medieval world by showing you a lot of the ins and outs through the costuming, through everyday society, through how it is when somebody goes to court. And it's all really great world building, but the end of the movie is definitely just the place where the movie shines the most with its visceral final duel, which is exhilarating, beautifully shot, and extremely violent, and is one of my favorite third acts for a movie this year. It's so entertaining. Now, in terms of negatives that I have with the film, I would say that sometimes the pacing is rather weird, and that's mostly due to the fact of the way in which the story is told. We are really rushing through moment after moment in especially the first act of this film as we kind of gloss over certain stories, but we do get reintroduced to those stories later on in acts 2 and 3 as we deal with other characters, and it really does fill in some of those gaps because there are moments, especially in the first act, where scenes will just kind of end, and also like two characters will be together in this one scene and then it'll cut and then it'll be a scene of Adam Driver showing up to Matt Damon's house like, you know, they hadn't seen each other in a while, but like they were literally together in the previous scene. So there's some wonky kind of stuff like that too. There's also some battle scenes that aren't the final duel that do kind of feel like they are forced into the narrative to kind of have a battle going on because they don't really add much, but they are wonderfully filmed, wonderfully choreographed, and really entertaining. Guys, this is just a really awesome film. It's relevant to today. It doesn't always land, but I think the performances are really fantastic. It's a brutal film, especially when we get to the actual rape in the film, which is really, really hard to watch. But I think Matt Damon, Adam Driver, Ben Affleck, and especially Jodie Comer give fantastic performances, and I really wish that this movie was doing a lot better than it is in theaters because I think it deserves to be seen. This movie deserves to be seen on the big screen. It's big, it's epic, and it's one of the reasons why I love going to the movies. I love seeing movies like this, and it's these types of films that I personally want to make. So anyway, guys, with all that said, I'm going to give The Last Duel an 8 out of 10. This is one of my favorite films of the year, guys. I absolutely adored it, thought it was so entertaining, and just a lot of fun to watch. But anyway, guys, as always, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel, and stay positive.